দর্শক আমন্ত্রণ জানাচ্ছি চ্যানেল 24 এর বিশেষ আয়োজন মুখোমুখিতে। আমাদের আজকের অতিথি মার্কিন যুক্তরাষ্ট্রের দক্ষিণ ও মধ্য এশিয়া বিষয়ক সহকারী পররাষ্ট্রমন্ত্রী নিশা দেশাই বিসওয়াল। Welcome to the show.
Hasib, thank you so much for having me.
You've been traveling Dhaka many times, so what brings you here at this time?
Well, thank you. You know, after the tragic and very deplorable attacks of the 1st of July and the 7th of July, Secretary Kerry, in his conversation with the Prime Minister, pledged that the United States would stand with the people of Bangladesh. And he asked me to come and to convey the personal regards of the President and the Secretary to the Prime Minister and to the people of Bangladesh, and to come and to discuss how the United States can best support Bangladesh at this difficult time, because we stand with the government and we stand with the people against these heinous attacks that have taken place.
Yes, and for the first time with the people of the world, along with the Bangladeshi people, we faced this kind of things. And this is very, very new to us. And the hostage situation is just like a film, but even then it's really brutal. So do you think, is there any international connection or homegrown terrorism, what it can be?
You know, it is the challenge of our times increasingly that we are seeing in many different countries and in many different ways these forces of extremism, of nihilism. And we do know that while there are forces that are homegrown and indigenous, that increasingly these networks are talking to each other, are connecting with each other, are learning from each other. And we have seen that, and we have seen the claims of responsibility on the July 1 attacks from ISIL, from the Islamic State, Daesh as we refer to it. We have seen also in prior attacks claims of responsibility from Al-Qaeda. And we do believe that there are connections between homegrown networks and these international networks. And we are determined to learn more about exactly how those connections take place and what they are and what they are intending, and to be able to stop them, to dismantle those networks, to destroy those cells, and to counter the very destructive and dark ideology that they peddle. And in this endeavor, this is a challenge for all of the people of the world, all of the societies, to be able to work together and to do their part. And so we come here with the intention of offering to Bangladesh what we can in terms of information that we may be able to bring to bear, and capabilities that we may be able to share, and technologies and training that we may be able to share.
Right. So how was your discussion with the high officials to Bangladesh?
Well, you know, I believe that there is a very firm resolve. We have heard that from the Prime Minister herself in her address to the nation. We have heard that in the comments of other senior leaders and members of the government. And certainly our discussions over the past couple of days have reflected that very sober and firm resolve to one, better understand the threats that are facing this country, and a firm resolve to address them, to counter them. This is a magnificent country, and the people of Bangladesh, we know, are the firm foundation of a tolerant, inclusive society. And these ideologies cannot and will not prevail, and we will do our part to support this government and the people.
One thing is very new to us, that the people who were in the operation, they are well established, they're from a good family, they're not somebody who is hungry for money or needs money to do such things. They are from a very good background. Don't you think it's a new phenomenon in the world that established people, educated people are getting into this terrorism ideological fight against the terrorism?
It's a very good question, and this is a challenge that we are seeking to better understand around the world, because we have seen youths from fairly affluent communities, well educated, who have somehow been lured into by the false promises and the false hopes that are peddled by these extremist networks. And it is our task to try to ensure that we are engaging our youths, ensuring that we are talking to them about not only the dangerous and frankly the false promises that are being proffered by these kinds of networks, but that we're also talking to them and engaging them about the more hopeful prosperity and opportunity that we seek to provide, whether it is in the United States as we seek to engage communities across our country, in Bangladesh and in many other countries around the world, that we cannot allow for these destructive ideologies to create a false picture of what they are peddling, because they don't represent either Muslim faith and Muslim culture, nor do they represent really any kind of a hopeful ideology for the world that they're seeking to bring about.
So you also had a meeting in this tour with other diplomats in Dhaka. Any idea how they're going to help us? Do you have any message from them, or you all can fight for one world where no terror will stand?
You know, what I heard overwhelmingly was, on the one hand, concern, which I think is important to understand, that there is concern in the diplomatic community, in the business community, and frankly, I think throughout society, about what this portends. But there's also a very firm commitment and resolve to support the people of Bangladesh and the government of Bangladesh at this time, and I certainly heard that across the board from the diplomats that I met with, and certainly also from business executives and others that I met with. And so, as the government seeks to address this challenge and they communicate their firm resolve, and I think the Prime Minister is starting to do this in the remarks that she has put forward to the nation, that the world will also be there with Bangladesh at this time, and certainly that is the message I bring from President Obama and from Secretary Kerry.
We'll be back to our discussion. দর্শক, একটা বিরতি যাচ্ছি, ফিরছি একটু পরে। দর্শক, আমন্ত্রণ আরও একবার আমাদের আজকের মুখোমুখিতে। কথা বলছিলাম মার্কিন যুক্তরাষ্ট্রের দক্ষিণ ও মধ্য এশিয়া বিষয়ক সহকারী পররাষ্ট্রমন্ত্রী নিশা দেশাই বিসওয়ালের সাথে। Welcome again. So, from the last October, it's interestingly, we have seen these terrorists trying to kill foreign friends of Bangladesh. Any observation that why they're trying to do that? Are they trying to make Bangladesh friendless in the world? Because I know they are doing on their targets, but why they're trying to kill the foreigners, though this time they killed all Bangladeshis, Indians, and Americans as well. So, any idea?
You know, there's a lot of information that we're trying to piece together. But we do know that this country and its record as a democratic and inclusive and tolerant society that has been able to advance prosperity for its people, that this is an ideology that many would seek to subvert. We know that some of these extremist groups that are operating around the world, they feed on division, on chaos, and on perceptions of a loss of hope and opportunity. So the success of Bangladesh is something that perhaps some of these violent and extremist ideologies and groups don't want to see. And to see a Bangladesh that is increasingly playing a role as a leader in the region and around the world is something perhaps that they don't want to see. But that is something that I know that this government and the people of Bangladesh will stand against and will refute. But we are also finding that around the world we are seeing different pieces of the puzzle that are starting to come into focus. And what we are trying to do is work with our friends and partners around the world to better understand how these groups like ISIL and Al-Qaeda are operating, how they are engaging with different networks in different countries, different homegrown groups, and what it is they are peddling in terms of some of the ideologies that are being manifested. So it's an unclear picture, but one that we are working hard to develop more information on, and one where we hope that our partnership with the government and with the people of Bangladesh will help us better understand what is happening here, and will help Bangladesh better understand how that relates to what we are seeing in other parts of the world.
Right. And after this accident or horrible tragedy, if the investor from the world, other countries, is are they going to stop coming here with their investment? Because if I want to invest something, I need a secure place, and they will find it is not secure, not safe. And of course, we have a lot of American buyers, European buyers. How we can make them assured this place is still good place to invest? So any suggestion, being a friend?
You know, we have long understood that Bangladesh represents a very important opportunity. We have seen analysis from the World Bank and from the IFC that Bangladesh has tremendous potential to be one of the major economies in the world, and certainly in the Asia-Pacific region by the year 2030. And we have seen that throughout the years, despite whatever challenges Bangladesh has been facing, it has been growing its economy at a steady pace of 5 to 6% growth. It has been lifting more people out of poverty. It has been creating more opportunity. And that has brought the investment and the attention of the global business community. Certainly from the United States, we have seen many major companies increase their investments in Bangladesh. The attacks and the efforts of these terrorist groups are certainly a cause for concern. But what I have heard increasingly from the business community is their desire to stand firm and to continue to pursue the opportunities that they see and to expand the circle of prosperity in this great country. So I do believe that as the government continues to focus its resolve on countering these efforts, that the international community and including the business community will also continue to be partners in this effort.
Right. When you talk about investment and trade, one thing comes in my mind first, that is GSP. And Bangladesh, its facility has been cancelled. Are we really getting it back? Because whenever our ambassador and other people from US, high officials, they come and say, yes, we have done a lot more to done. What more to really done to get it back?
Sure. These are conversations that we are having with the government. And we do believe that there has been significant progress on the concerns that caused us to suspend GSP. And those concerns were about the safety of the workforce, particularly in the RMG sector, after the terrible tragedies of Rana Plaza and the Tasneem factory. We do believe that there have been improvements in worker safety. We think more needs to be done in terms of worker rights, in terms of ensuring that labor has the right to organize and has the ability to convene. I think that there have been legislative proposals that have been tabled. We'd like to see further action on those. But I want to say that what we have seen in Bangladesh is an extraordinary coalition of government, of civil society, of business, and of labor to come together and partner with the international community to address these challenges. And that is, I believe, in many ways unprecedented around the world to see this kind of an extraordinary commitment from this extraordinary coalition. So the progress that has been made has been quite substantial in the number of inspectors that have been hired, in the number of factories that have been inspected, many of which have been closed. But this is a very large sector, and reforms, I know, will take some more time, and certain of the legislative frameworks that we think need to happen, we'd like to see more progress on that. We in the United States are assessing all of the progress and are looking to see how we can best engage that. We would like to see a reinstatement of the GSP, and we look forward to the day when we can say that that there has been the kind of progress that really does merit a reinstatement. And I don't think that that day is in the distant future. I do hope to see that progress made in the near future.
We are hopeful too. Civil society voice is one of the most important for every country. But the civil society of Bangladesh, they're somehow scared. In this situation, do you think activities like 1st July, like the terrorism, they can grow because there is no one to speak against anything bad?
You know, one of the points that we have underscored both in our conversations with the Prime Minister and the government here, but also what we have underscored around the world, that as we seek to improve security and to combat with terrorists and terrorist groups and their ideologies, that we ought not forget what it is we're fighting for, which is the fundamental freedoms that define our societies. And that in combating terrorism, we also have to counter their ideology. And the best way to counter their ideology is to be able to engage that inclusive and free society that provides the underpinning and the very foundation on which our countries are based. It's a difficult balance in every country. We struggle with it everywhere, including in the United States, where in the pursuit of security, oftentimes there can be actions that are perceived to limit those key freedoms. And it is a tension that I think is felt everywhere. It is a balance that we are constantly striving with. But I know that the cost to us as democracies in not having by our side and engaged in that debate and dialogue the vibrant civil societies and political parties that define us will be a huge loss and will undermine our cause in the long run. So this is a challenge, I think, for every country and for every society. It is one that is certainly present here in Bangladesh, and is a tension that we are also trying to address in the United States. What Bangladesh needs, and what I have heard in the Prime Minister's statements, is a need to unify the country for the challenge that it faces. And unifying the country will require the firm participation of all elements of this society, including its media, including its civil society, and including the political fabric of the country.
We will be back after the short break. দর্শক, একটা বিরতি যাচ্ছি, ফিরছি একটু পরে। স্বাগত আরেকবার চ্যানেল 24 এর বিশেষ আয়োজন মুখোমুখিতে। কথা বলছি মার্কিন সহকারী পররাষ্ট্রমন্ত্রী নিশা দেশাই বিসওয়ালের সাথে। So, as you look after South and Middle Asia, we all have kind of same crisis, and how we all can work together along with you to stop terrorism.
It's an excellent question, and it's a difficult and complicated question. As I was saying, I do believe that this is the challenge of our times, and to face it, we are going to have to be as learning and as adaptive and as inclusive as possible. In every country there is new and different manifestations of how these extremist ideologies are taking root, what they are tapping into, and what local or homegrown elements that they are seeking to exploit. There is no one uniform answer for any country. In every country, it's going to depend on the situation and the context within that country, the historical, societal, political context within that country. What we can do is work together to create platforms that allow a shared learning, that allow for an exchange of ideas, an exchange of information, and that allow for an exchange of training and tools. We all bring different capabilities into this. We all bring different histories into this. Bangladesh has had its own long history in dealing with extremism of different sorts and things that it has learned through that process. We are in a unique position now of having an unprecedented level of engagement with countries around the world of every kind. We are working with Islamic nations, we are working with secular nations, we are working with every continent in engaging and exchanging information and ideas so that we can better understand and better counter the terrorism and the extremist ideology which we see seeking to create these pernicious inroads into our societies. And so I am confident that while this challenge is indeed complex and is indeed of concern, that as we increasingly work together and as we tap into the vast pool of reservoir of support in our societies, and Bangladeshis, the overwhelming majority, will tell you that the ideologies that they are seeing manifested and these barbaric and brutal actions and attacks that we are seeing, that they don't represent Bangladesh. They don't represent Bangladeshi culture. They don't represent Islam. And so as we tap into that enormous reservoir of public support and public will to counter, I'm confident that we will indeed be able to tackle these challenges.
Right. The last 2 days meeting were not that enough to discuss the whole process, but is there any plan, as you said, you will help us through giving us expertise in every level? Is there any way came out to the discussion with Foreign Secretary, Foreign Minister, Home Minister? What would be the ways how the expertise will work between both the country?
Sure. We have had a long-standing partnership between our two countries, and we have over the years collaborated in many different ways on many different issues. We've had a very strong partnership that has focused on the economic development in this country, and we have seen tremendous gains as a result. Bangladesh is one of the shining examples of how poverty alleviation, investments in health care, in food security, can lift an entire people. And the progress that we have seen in this country has been a result of the very strong will and capabilities of this country, but also the partnership between our two countries. And as we have been able to see success in this arena, I'm confident that as we expand into other challenges, including the challenges of terrorism and extremism, that kind of a partnership will also yield very important results. So we have discussed and explored with the government different kinds of forms of assistance, including assistance in the investigation of the attacks so that we can better understand exactly what transpired, who was behind it, what were their modes of operating, so we can better understand exactly how to then structure the response. we're also talking about different ways that we can share information and intelligence, and then how we can work together on the capabilities from law enforcement and security forces to be able to respond to these kinds of challenges, these kinds of attacks. Bangladesh has a very strong and capable law enforcement and security capabilities, and we can work together on areas of specific interest. We have provided some options, and we will wait to hear from the government of Bangladesh to see where it is they would like to take that. The other larger question is on countering extremist ideology. And this is one where I think all of the communities that have been affected around the world are working to better understand and to better counter the ways in which our youth are being recruited and are being tempted into these networks. And I know that there are conversations that many different countries around the world are having about how they can effectively counter that ideology. And so those are, again, conversations where we would welcome the participation of our Bangladeshi friends to those discussions to see how we can learn from each other.
Essentially, last question. As we all talk about youth, the number of youth in my country and your country, it's quite a high. And the terrorism, the ideological concept is trying to put them in different manner, which is not good. How we can stop it? Because from parents to the education institute, how both the country can help and stop our youth to moving forward to the dark age.
Yeah. You know, I think it has to be a whole of societal effort. Certainly government has its role to play in terms of ensuring that it is communicating effectively and engaging effectively with all segments of society. Certainly our educational institutions have a role to play. Our media has a role to play. But also family and community structures, faith institutions, our religious leaders have a role to play. And what I think is needed in every country increasingly is an effort that unifies the country, that brings together all elements of society to have that discussion, to have that debate. In the United States, we hosted last year an unprecedented conference on countering violent extremism, where we brought together delegations representing government and law enforcement communities, but also civil societies and academia, to start that conversation, to say, okay, you know, how do we tackle this problem of extremist ideology? How do we best understand it? And there are important learnings that came out of that, and also important efforts, national and regional efforts, to look at the situation in more focused ways about how the dynamics in South Asia, for example, differ from what may be happening in Southeast Asia, what may be happening in communities in Europe, in the United States. And I know that that is something that we would welcome greater focus within Bangladesh, that brings together all of these different aspects of society in that conversation. And what I'm hearing in the Prime Minister's statements is her desire to have exactly that kind of an effort within Bangladesh.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
দর্শক, এতক্ষণ সাথে থাকার জন্য ধন্যবাদ। আশা করি সবাই নিরাপদে থাকবেন। দেখা হবে অন্য এক সময়।